Dan Foley is now party to an action filed in state district court against the Sandoval County clerk. At the time of this recording, neither the line panel nor the producers of this program were aware of the action being filed.
The voting stories from Rio Rancho sounded like something from Florida. 3-hour waits to get to overtaxed and understaffed poll workers on Election Day. So here to point the fingers of electoral blame, Rio Rancho resident, former New Mexico House Republican Whip Dan Foley, we'll get to that. Former chairman of the Democratic Party of New Mexico, John Wertheim, is back. Our good friend Tripp Jennings of the journalistic venture New Mexico in Depth, we're big fans of that. And Jamie Estrada, former Commerce Department official. Dan, let me start with you. I'm going to give you your due props here. You were not happy about this situation on not just our live election night coverage, but even after that. Let's kind of set the lay of the land here. You live there, you know what's up. Out of the, for the county, for Sandoval County, Rio Rancho makes up, I think, like 49, 48 precincts out of the 89, somewhere county-wide. Right. But only 5 electoral sites for 89,000 people. However, that was approved after a presentation in October of 2011 to your commission folks, and everybody went with it, and now everyone's surprised. Should everyone have not been surprised? Well, I
think they should not have been surprised when you start to look now at the ballots that came in from early voting and absentee, and you saw the money that was being spent in legislative races, congressional races, Senate races, presidential race. You know, it's not like Election Day snuck up on people. I mean, at some point they needed to say, wait a minute, you know, we've got a problem here. We've got as many voting convenience centers in a town of Bernalillo that's got 9,000 people as we're going to have in a town of almost 90,000. And so I think at some point there could have been some work done. I think you're going to see, and that's why, you know, as of the time we're filming this, you know, they've already impounded the ballots down in Darien County. They're moving to impound the ballots right now in Sandoval County. I just don't believe this is pure incompetence. You know, when I voted on Election Day, I stood in line for 3.5 hours. When I walked out, I know for a fact there was a sign where I was standing. When I walked out 3.5 hours later, from where I entered the line, it was 125 yards further back of people. 3 machines. The people that were working there, let me say, Gene, they did a phenomenal job. They did a phenomenal job trying to accommodate folks. But, you know, at some point you have to look out there and say, they told us when we were standing in line, those lines were that long, if not longer, all day. And, you know, all it takes is a printer. All it takes is bringing down a couple more printers and accommodating this stuff. So I think at the end of the day, I think you're seeing that, you know, it's funny how in places where we know there's really strong Republican vote in Sandoval County, they got slashed into these voting centers at a very alarming number, but in some of the more Democrat areas of Sandoval County, it was free will to go vote when they needed to vote. And I just think that this is not pure dumb luck that this happened.
Interesting. Tripp, you also had a family member with the same thing Dan's describing, as you related earlier. Not funny to stand in line for 3 hours.
My wife stood in line for 3 hours on election night. You know, the one thing that I do want to say that this was the first election where you didn't have a straight party ticket, so that would increase the time that someone spends on a ballot. Could that have led to some of the long lines? I don't know, possibly. Also, you know, administration. Could this have been problems with the administration of the county clerk and how she administered the night? I don't know that either. To say that it's more than incompetence, I guess we'll see and see where it goes. Sure. If there's going to be an extra level now and maybe judiciary or something, who knows?
What's interesting about this, Jamie, is the Bureau of Elections chief up there, Eddie Gutierrez, his guesstimate was pretty close to what actually happened. So it's not as if folks didn't know what the turnout was going to be. They were right on that within a couple thousand folks. But again, what Tripp and Dan are getting at here, how could one have not seen the problem coming beforehand? That's the odd part. So with that being said, does this now get to the level of voter suppression, which is now what people are talking, even our own Attorney General is now saying, and he's no one's Republican, even he's now saying this could have been a potential situation to be explored.
Well, I think any time that somebody is waiting in line for 3 hours, you're wondering, are people going to drop out of this process? You know, especially those that were waiting until 11 o'clock when races were already called. But I looked at this and tried to compare this to other counties, and my home county, original home county of Doñana County, 39 convenience centers in all of Doñana County. The city of Las Cruces, 100,000 people, and I looked at the addresses. There were 25 convenience centers in the city of Las Cruces. Wow. So if you extrapolate this, Rio Rancho should have had at least 22 convenience centers. So it seems to me that there was really no benchmarking going on. In Bernalillo County, the county clerk said that she had done her own sort of formula. And so I think a lot of the county clerks, we're trying to guesstimate a lot of this stuff in terms of how to allocate these centers in what area, population centers. And it just seems to me one ought to look at this from a business perspective. Like, what would a production and operations management guy do? They'd go back and they'd say, well, this is the rate it takes for someone to vote. So therefore, there's got to be a formula, an algorithm that goes into computing how many machines, et cetera, that we actually need in a population. And it's clear to me that not all these precincts are created equal. So
interesting. We've got a bit of a she said, she said going on here as well, John. That Ms. Padilla says, well, we asked for more machines, and the Secretary of State's office saying, hey, we got no notification of anybody asking for more machines. Is that going to be the final thing here, the final line in the sand, if that turns out to be not asked?
Yeah, I strongly disagree. I mean, I think that to assume that there was some sort of vote suppression effort is a real problem, especially in the face of what the Attorney General is looking at is also the Tea Party training on voter ID and other things that is a real example of attempting to voter suppress. And it's interesting because Rio Rancho is a big Tea Party area where they had these probably unlawful training sessions run by the Tea Party. But I really think this is a bipartisan issue. I think there's shared responsibility between the county clerk, who's a Democrat, and the Secretary of State, who is a Republican. I think that neither of them did their jobs well, and the voters suffered for it, and that's the real problem. So it's a real question of shared responsibility. I think where we had really solid work at the county level, in Bernalillo County and Doña Ana County, you didn't have this problem. And it did require kind of coming up with one's own formula, which I think in both Doña Ana and when we say formula, what we're talking about is how many centers do you put in. I do think it's an operations question. You're going to have a certain turnout. How many people do you want to have? There was a formula that was set by the contractor with the state Secretary of State that appeared to be wrong. And the people that kind of did their own work, like Maggie Toulouse here in Bernalillo County, didn't have the same problems. And so I think it's a shared responsibility. I think it needs to be fixed. I think it's a shame. I don't think it's a partisan issue, though.
It's interesting you mentioned that because one of the metrics I read they were using was the certain amount of voters they can accommodate per hour. And clearly that was way, way, way off the mark. And I wonder if it was a ballot issue. I mean, was it like 10 or 12 things that all added up to a problem instead of one or two
Well,
huge
I would
things?
tell you, it wasn't the straight party ticket stuff because I was there. They had 23 boxes that you could go stand and vote in. There was never more than 7 people in the 23 boxes to go vote. It was the 3 printers printing off the ballot. That's the problem. So it wasn't that the people took too long. There was plenty of time once you got your ballot. I think that, when you look at things like in Corrales, that they had a greater turnout from 12 to 08. And you look at Bernalillo, you look at Placitas and their turnout, and then you go to Rio Rancho, which is considered a pretty heavy Republican area, by the way, and their turnout was 13, 14% less. And yet it's the fastest growing community in the state of New Mexico. And so none of this is matching. And I think that, did it make a difference in the presidential race? It didn't. But when you look at what happened, and then you extrapolate even further and look at the Republican precincts, where they stuck them, the longest lines were at the Republican precincts. So, I think it is voter suppression. I do think that anytime you're setting up a scenario that allows one party to have an opportunity to vote and not another, you're doing that on purpose. And I think that we're seeing clear signs, and I think we're going to see more as time goes on.
Why did the Republican Secretary of State let it happen?
Because it's not her job.
She's the chief election officer of the state.
It's not her job, and I think there needs to be some discussion about the law. The law says that the county clerks run the elections in their county, and so she has the right to answer the questions when they come to her. Sandoval County asked for 10 locations. They got 10 locations. Bernalillo County asked for more. Doña Ana County asked for more.
That's not enough locations for a county of that size.
Because it's the county clerk's job to know how the elections are run in her county. And see, what's interesting is that John wants to say...
Does that not denote that she's perhaps a bit too autonomous in this situation? There's nobody else that can have a voice in that decision?
I think that we're going to have to look at this operations process for elections, because I think it's not the... we've seen before where the Secretary of State has come in and said, we need to look at something, and county clerks have pushed back and said, it's our job to do this. That's right. It's our job to do this.
Absolutely.
As far as elections go, there's election law, and then the Secretary of State actually has the rule-making authority. She has to go back and actually write the regulations for elections. Is that what you're talking about, Dan, about possibly...
I'm talking that there's law that tells you the county clerks run those elections in their county. There's rules that she makes about how we're going to have the ballot printed, when the ballot's going to be done, so we don't have different ballots in every county, that uniformity. But when it comes to putting boots on the ground and implementing it, it's the county clerk's job by law to run those counties. She is an elected or he is an elected official.
We need to wrap this up. Let me propose this. You know, we all remember 2004. There were problems in Rio Rancho as well, with a limited amount of places to vote in the northern part of the area. You would have thought after that cycle, even before 2008, we would have had some resolution on this.
Let me tell you this, if you look at 2008, the votes that were cast, and you go to the precincts in the David Doyle, John Sapien race, and you have just equal turnout in 2012, equal turnout in 2012, not the 13% lower, equal turnout. David Doyle wins that race by 187 votes. In turn, he loses. So I think that start looking at the outcomes of these races. I think the reason the Democrat Attorney General is looking into this is there is a thought that is voter suppression.
Sure, and as it stands now, as we tape this, we're not sure where the outcome is going to be for the Marcy Blaze race.
That's another close race.
Another close race. There's a lot of things going on there.
It doesn't look like it looks like Marcy Blaze will probably have lost that race, even though it'll go to a recount. Right. The margins were over 60 votes.
Dan Foley is now party to an action filed in State District Court against the Sandoval County Clerk. At the time of this recording, neither the line panel nor the producers of this program were aware of the action being filed.
We're back in a moment with Democratic Party Chairman Javier Gonzalez. First, a moment to mark the passing of Judge Bob Schwartz. Before he was appointed to the bench, he was a familiar face on New Mexico in Focus, including on this panel addressing drunken driving back in 2003.
You need to talk about the 6-month rule in the lower courts because it operates, it probably causes more dismissals than any other single cause.
It is a rule by the Supreme Court. It is not a law.
Right, and there's another rule by the Supreme Court, which is in the district courts, which said, Judge, if for good cause shown, you think we need more time to deal with this case, grant an extension. The problem is here, nobody has to be at fault for the state to eat it.